one of the boys and girls clubs that we're working with, they were doing an afternoon or after school program, and they were using lifehub.
Mm.
One of the young scholars, 12-year-old young man, came running from the back of the classroom up to Miss Jones, who was the supervisor over there, and he goes, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, did you know there's such a thing as a franchise? Taco Bell has franchise, and it was going through all these things and talking about franchise. And this little kid with great big saucer eyes, and she called me to tell me the story. She said, this kid with great big saucer eyes looked at me and said, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to have my own McDonald's franchise.
All right. So I've got two kids. I've got a 10-year-old girl and I've got a 14-year-old boy. I think I've got those ages right. Yeah. So I have to double check. What would she be learning, my 10-year-old girl, with you guys?
Oh gosh. So let me give you what we, and I'll back up for a second to paint a little bit broader picture. What we do is we provide what we call educational tasks or edu tasks.
Hmm.
And that's what you would find on LifeHub. And they're designed to be little small tasks that a youth would do that take somewhere between 10, 15, 20 minutes
Hmm.
to complete. And we can get
Yeah.
into a little more about that later. And so let's say that your daughter went on and it's not a curriculum, it's not a course,
Mm.
there's 1,500 plus edu jobs on the platform,
Mm.
and it really is designed to help them discover who they are, what their interests are, and
Mm.
learn as they're doing it. So
Okay.
I'll give you one example is how
Yeah.
much does my puppy cost? And in that particular edu job, your daughter would go into the virtual pet store
Yeah.
and she would buy a puppy.
Nice.
Congratulations, you just bought a brand new puppy.
The
Oh,
only way
guess
she's
what?
getting a puppy, by the way, but yes, carry on.
Okay. And so guess what? That puppy needs to eat.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
puppy. It has to have
Yeah.
shots. It's a
Yeah.
puppy. It needs to go to the vet. It's a puppy. It needs a water bowl and a
Right.
food dish. It
Okay.
probably should have a leash and a collar and maybe some toys because it is a puppy.
Okay.
So the
Mm.
educational task would be what do all of those things cost?
Okay.
And the learning that we're taking them through, that funnel that we're kind of taking them through to that life lesson is what you pay for something isn't what it costs. And
Mm.
obviously, the association that we're making is not only is that your puppy, but that's going to be your car, that's going to be your home.
Yeah, I get
That
it.
that is a life principle that you will learn now that you'll never forget that what I pay for something isn't what it costs. It's very, very impactful. Another one that I'll give you, I love this story, and I love to tell this story. One of the boys and girls clubs that we're working with, they were doing an afternoon or after school program, and they were using lifehub.
Mm.
One of the young scholars, 12-year-old young man, came running from the back of the classroom up to Miss Jones, who was the supervisor over there, and he goes, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, Miss Jones, did you know there's such a thing as a franchise? Taco Bell has franchise, and it was going through all these things and talking about franchise. And this little kid with great big saucer eyes, and she called me to tell me the story. She said, this kid with great big saucer eyes looked at me and said, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to have my own McDonald's franchise.
Okay.
Now, what you have to understand, Mike, is when we're talking about this, we're talking about a young scholar that
Mm.
comes from a very socioeconomically challenged family.
Got it.
And as the story, as we discussed it, she said, do you know what we did for that young man in a
Yeah.
matter of 15 minutes? We
Yeah, you
changed
opened up a
his,
window into a whole new world, right?
right. We changed his trajectory
I get it.
because now he saw something that he would have never had the opportunity to see before or learn before. So that's a couple of examples
Get it.
of
I
what
get it.
life does.
John, that resonates with me because I used to be a teacher, right? So I've worked in some pretty rough schools, right? I've worked in like in the UK we have school uniform, which I know isn't really a thing in the States, but in like regular schools, state schools, we have a school uniform. And my gosh, they tried one time to get the kids to come in without a uniform, like as a way to get them into school, and it was actually worse because the kids couldn't afford clothes, you know? Like I totally understand where you're coming from this. If you can open up a window into a whole new world that maybe their family wouldn't ever speak to them about. It's big, man.
Yes. Yeah. And here's the explanation point. Here's the frosting on the cake is the way that the system is set up is we we really truly believe that when you're looking at youth and you're looking at Fleck education, and Fleck education has the foundation of youth financial literacy. We define youth financial literacy as earn, save, spend, give, and invest. The core of that is earn. Four of those depend upon one, and the one that they depend upon is earn. Our whole philosophical belief is if we teach our youth to earn first, then they can build on that particular piece. So
Okay.
when these youth complete these edu jobs, they
Mm.
actually earn money.
All right.
And they earn real money, and that money is deposited on a LifeHub Visa debit card. And now we've laid the true foundation of not only do they understand that what the money is for the puppy that they bought, they're actually learning as they're earning. And that is the foundational piece of what we do. And now it goes back to Mike, what you were talking about. Now, a lot of times these 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old youth are being able to contribute to the household, contribute to the household income, or perhaps learn how to save and start the budgeting process because there's things they want to buy. So the whole foundation of LifeHub is it is Fleck education. It is all of the 1,500 EduTasks that they learn from, but they earn as they're learning and they learn as they're earning.
John, where's the money coming from?
Most of the group where we're at right now is we're really working a lot with youth organizations,
Mm.
private schools, charter
Mm.
schools, and they're coming from sponsors, they're coming from grants, they're coming from high net worth individuals that
Oh,
are stepping in saying, this is really cool. And the
I love it.
impact that it has when they're actually earning, it exemplifies the results.
All right, man. Listen, I want to do a little segment that I think you're going to be good at, right? Everything we're doing for
I
the.
don't know about that, but go ahead.
No, you will be, man. You will be. I'm gonna give you a little bit of advance warning. We're gonna do an elevator pitch, right? This could be good or it could be a disaster, but let's see. I'm going to open the elevator doors and you'll have about 20 seconds to describe the business. Sound good?
Sure. Did the door open?
Go.
Mike, I got just a short amount of time before this door closes and you jump off. We make an impact. We change the lives of our youth, and we do it by allowing them to learn financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and career development. Watch us as we change the world.
That worked, John. I love it. Well done, mate. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Did I make it inside 20 seconds? That's the
Well,
key.
I've just walked out the door, but I've got the idea, right? I love it, man. I love it. So, John, listen. Everything I'm telling you now, I'm just getting off LinkedIn, right? So, you're based in Portland.
I am physically in Portland. Our headquarters is in Tampa.
Yeah, I saw that. So, why the difference in geography?
It's where I live.
Mhm.
So I'll back up for a second so that you understand the whole story. I spent over 20 years in the financial services world. Um, I lived daily managing some very large teams and looking at the results of financial illiteracy, people who couldn't qualify for a basic loan, people who couldn't qualify for a home loan. And I
Mm,
saw the results of that. And in the back of my mind, I have always said, if I ever had the opportunity to do something to
mm,
change this, I would. So that was kind of what was always in the back of my mind. I got a call one day uh, from my nephew and said, "Hey, I'm kind of, helping out with somebody, raising the seed capital to start this new venture." And he told me about what the vision was. And I said, "Yeah, I'll throw a few dollars in." So I became but I became one of the early investors.
cool.
And as an early investor, they asked me, they said, "Hey, would you mind sitting in on some of our calls that we have on Fridays, some of our management calls?" I said,
Mm,
"Sure." So I'd sit in, and then I was texting back to my nephew, what about this? What about that? And he said, well, why aren't you speaking up? And I said, well, you didn't tell me to speak up. You just told me to jump on the calls and listen. And so I started talking and contributing, and one thing led to another. And then a couple years ago, I made the decision that, you know what, I'm going to round out my career
Hmm.
by doing this. I'm going to be an integral part of getting this built and launched and changing the world.
So is it fair to describe this as your mission?
Yo, absolutely.
That's
It's my
cool.
mission. It's my passion. It's my
And
love.
your nephew's based out of Tampa, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So he pitched you on the idea. The company was founded over there, but you work remotely most of the time.
Correct.
Cool, man. I love it. The company seems pretty big. Again, this is just me looking at LinkedIn. According to LinkedIn, you've got about 41 employees. Is that about right?
Yes. However, the majority of our employees are that includes our advisory board, and we rely heavily upon our advisory board. And in most of, outside of a few exceptions, of our employees are equity based. We don't have a payroll that large, but yes, we have a team that contributing team that big.
So they've all got skin in the game, basically.
Yes, they do.
That's an interesting business model. What made you come up with that?
Well, when you don't have when you're a startup and then you're an entrepreneur and you don't have cash, the
Mhm.
only cash you have is equity.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And people were on board with that, right?
Oh, yes.
So they've got other means, other ways of earning money, and this is something they do as much as they can.
Right. And most of them are, a few hours a week. We've got some people that are maybe 5 to 10 hours a week, but they're contributing as we can. If we need them more, they'll jump in. But yeah, it's not, we're not asking them to give up their jobs, to give up their lifestyles, to interfere with their work-life balance, but to take the talents that they have and the experiences they have and contribute back.
Makes sense. It's a pretty cool business model. Were you inspired by anyone else when you came up with that? Was it your idea? Or was it someone else?
No, the overall idea of the technology platform was not mine. We have a very creative individual that really invented lifehub,
Mhm.
and really is the continuals to. He's our what do we call him now? I don't know what it is, but he's he's our innovation officer. He's our chief innovation officer, and he really provides the dreaming and the innovation.
That's cool, man, to have somebody like that. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Okay, so let's do a deep dive. I've got a little sound for that as well. Let's see how this works. Everything we're doing for the first time. Let's do a little deep dive. What's the most important thing about electors to you?
The most important thing is the feedback that we get not only from the youth but also from the leaders, what in whatever capacity they may be that are involved with the youth, about the change that's happening in these kids. That is probably the number one driving factor. Is it is a tangible change that we see in the youth.
Give me an example, man. What's one of the kind of like good stories, impactful stories that you can think of?
I got a call, I don't know how long ago it's been. Time is a blur when you're doing what we're doing, and you're just all
Get it?
after. I got a call from a mother. She said, she goes, I just want to thank you. And I said, okay, I'll take a thank you.
Hmm.
She goes, and her daughter was in a private school, and they were using LifeHub at bell time.
Hmm.
So that first 15 minutes, that's when the kids got to be on LifeHub.
Mm-hmm.
And if they missed that window, they didn't get to be on LifeHub.
Mm.
And she called me and she said, I just want to thank you. She goes, I have struggled with getting my daughter out of bed, dressed, having breakfast, and to school on time from day one.
Okay.
And she goes, my daughter is up right now pushing me to get out the door because she cannot miss bell time, because if she misses bell time, she misses the opportunity to be on LifeHub. So it's that type of impact. Maybe they're not huge things, but again, what that does, I shared the story with you about the young scholar that learned about franchises and the trajectory that change is there. And so it's that type of that impact that we see that maybe aren't monumental, like earth-shaking, but their trajectory changes. They've changed the direction. We had one of the Boys and Girls Clubs that was really struggling with an after-school program. Their attendance rate was about 30, 31, 32%. They brought on and they put LifeHub in, and their attendance rate now is over 90%.
So it went from 30% to 90%.
Attendance rate, yes.
Damn, that's impressive.
Right. And then when we get the feedback from the youth, it's yes, they love the fact that they can earn. That's, obviously.
Yeah.
But then it starts to go beyond that, and the feedback that we get is they love what they're learning.
Meaningful, right?
Very.
Yeah, that's always been it's one of the big reasons why I got out of education, especially secondary education, high school. I just didn't feel like the things that they were learning were preparing them for real life.
And that's where we step in. I mean, we prepare them for the real world in an experiential manner.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it, man, and I like it a lot. How do you measure success for the company, for you?
There's three different questions there, because for the company, it's and I share this with people all the time, and I think that this will get the example across. What we do is a head heart. The head part of it is it's a business. Electus is a for-profit company. It has to be that way. We do have a nonprofit, not that that really matters. But so there's a business side of this that you've got to have a business mindset for.
Yeah.
So success from the business side of it is all of the metrics that would go into that. Are we hitting our sales projections? Are we hitting, are we living up to our performa? Are we, growing revenues? Are we watching expense? All the things that go with running a business, that's the head part. So we measure that, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's the heart part of it and that's what really drives all of us on the team is now we go down, we look at the heart. What impact are we making? What changes can we make to drive even more impact? What feedback can we get? We just launched version 3 of the technology based a lot around the input that we got back as to, gosh, it would be nice if we were doing this. This would be really, really helpful. So we really start to look at it from the heart standpoint as well, and what the measurements are with that. And I know I keep coming back to that same word and using it over and over again, but it really is the gauge is what is the impact and what's the measurable impact. We do a couple of edu jobs and they pay the most. Well, we solicit the impact from the kids is what are you learning? What do you like about it? And we gather all of that input back, and then we look at that and we measure. We're changing lives.
That's cool. So you get direct feedback from the kids.
Yes.
I like it. I like it. So what's a common misconception people have about either you or Electus or Life Jobs?
I think the biggest thing is that because it's so new and it's so different, they just don't get what we're doing until I sit down and have a conversation with them, like I am with you, Mike. Once we have the opportunity to sit down and really share with individuals what we're doing, then they're like you. They're like, okay, I get it, and I get what you're doing, and and a lot of educators that we talk to, like yourself, past educators, come back and say, this is what we need. This is exactly what the education system needs. And we realize that public education is really based around STEAM and STEM, and we understand that, and that's not what we do. But nonetheless, that's really probably the people just don't know about us. That's probably the biggest piece.
Okay, so it's getting the word out there. That's the
Yes.
big thing. Makes sense. Let's have a look at you now. Where did you grow up, and how did that shape who you are today?
Well, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I grew up in I don't know how else to describe it, a blue collar environment.
Yeah.
Some of the earlier years of my childhood, we lived with my my mom's sister, and my dad and my uncle were business partners in getting the business started, and we
Mhm.
lived in a two-bedroom project with 7 kids.
Okay.
And I grew up in an environment where, much like my generation and even the generation after that, where money was never talked about. It
Hmm.
was just one of those taboo subjects. And
Because
so
there was none?
you just didn't talk about it. You just didn't talk about money. You didn't talk about it. Just was a subject that was just never discussed.
Hmm.
And so really grew up without really an understanding of money. We didn't, as a family, we didn't really have a budget. We lived on a cigar box. Money came in, money went out. It just was how we grew up.
Yeah.
And so I had to step out and learn the hard way. Still learning
Mm.
um, around that whole piece on there. And that really started to, I think, probably in the early part of my life, made a huge influence as to, um, gosh, it would have been very, very helpful had I just understood just the basics of finance and the basics of that. And I think that was kind of a foundational piece that really led me even into the career that I went into.
Mm.
And then eventually to say, you know what, let me change that for the generation coming up. Let me give them something that I didn't give, because it would have made a huge difference.
100%, man. I love it. Yeah, makes tons of sense. So, was there a big turning point in your life, a significant turning point that kind of set you on in a particular direction?
Um, there were probably several. I can tell you the story that's coming to my mind, so I'll share it, because
Yeah.
that's the one that's coming with me. Is my dad, and I'll try to stay composed here. My dad was one of just rest his soul, was one of the most wonderful, loving, kind, gentle-hearted individuals that you probably ever want to meet, and he was a mechanic.
Mm.
And he was a very, very good mechanic. But I can always, and I think probably the thing that really started to change my thoughts and my pattern, to break the cycle that I was in, was my dad would come home, um, and I'd meet him at the front door a lot of times. And that was back when wrench turning was really wrench turning. That's how you fixed
Mm.
cars back in the days like that. And he'd come home and he'd hold his hands up, and they'd be oil stained, and he'd have a knuckle it had been cut, and look at that. And he'd look at me and he'd say, "Son, I don't care what you do in life, just don't do this."
Wow.
Um, very right?
Yeah, yeah.
So very, very, I think that was one of the things that really started to change my thought and my trajectory.
Mm.
And looking back on it, that those are the times which is really the foundation of what we're trying to do today for our youth, is sometimes it doesn't take a big thing
Mm.
to shift. Sometimes it doesn't take a monumental, quote unquote, catastrophe to make a shift, to
Hmm.
change a thinking pattern or open the eyes to something different.
Mm.
And so that's what we have based what we're doing on, is let's give them a lot of those moments. Let's give them a lot of those opportunities
Yeah.
to to have those where they'll look back and say, you know what, I didn't even realize it at the time, but wow, that made an impact.
Yeah. So like a nudge in a direction, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Gentle nudge.
That's which was a term we use often. We just give nudges.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, which can hopefully help them avoid those big moments, the traumatic moments, right?
Correct.
I like it. What do they say? Use a small lever to shift a giant rock.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I get it. In England we say lever. I know you
That
guys.
works.
Cool, man. I love it. What's something surprising you've learned about the kids, the youth who learn with you?
I think that I think the biggest thing that I have learned personally, and again, because a big portion of the youth that we work with are socially economically challenged,
Mm-hmm.
is how open and receptive they are to wanting to break out of the cycle that they're in.
Makes
I
sense.
think that that's probably been the biggest, and I don't know why that would be such an aha thing, but it is. I mean, they are like sponges. They're excited. They want to go to school.
Yeah,
They want to participate in the after school program
yeah.
because of what we're providing for them.
That makes a ton of sense to me. My mother, she was like a principal in a really kind of like socio-economically deprived area. And I remember her telling me, I must have been, I don't know, 11 or something when she told me this. There's kids in her school, a lot of kids in her school, who are the third generation unemployed. So grandparents, always unemployed. Parents have always been unemployed, and they're likely to be also unemployed. So there's a knowledge gap. Nobody's got any practical real world experience to pass on about how to improve your life.
Exactly. And now we're one generation beyond that. Now these kids are into the fourth and fifth generation of
Yeah,
that cycle.
that's tough, man. But this is cool. This is cool that you're providing something to them that opens up their world, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
really
There's just, and again, what they learn on LifeHub, they're certainly not going to learn at home. It's sad, but it's true.
hmm.
Um, and the chances are they're not going to learn it in school either.
Yeah,
And the
true.
beauty of it is that the parents don't have to know the subject matter. And we
Hmm.
get feedback a lot of times if the youth is doing Life Hub at home, and a lot of times it's restricted, and that's a whole nother. They have the ability when we set it up of what times and days that they can be on the program. But a lot of times, if they're working at home, we will get very positive feedback from the parents saying, "Thank you. I just sat next to my child and I'm learning right along with them."
Yeah,
Because they don't have to be the subject matter. It's designed for the youth to be on there and to just be able to learn without having to go ask questions, and if
yeah,
they do have questions, then we
yeah.
have an asynchronous way for them to communicate back.
I love it. All right, man. We're coming near the end. This is a segment I call Love Hate. Let's see if what you think of this sound.
I I love you.
Let's see which direction we go in, John. It's up to you. What makes you angry, or what needs to change about the world of education?
Oh boy, I can get myself in trouble on this one. Um, I think what what the world of education has forgotten, sadly, is education.
Hmm.
It's all about teach to test,
Hmm.
um, teach to push to the next level,
Hmm.
regardless of whether they're educated. It does that's not what it is.
Hmm.
And even when they offer high school programs around financial literacy, which a lot of states now are mandating here in the U.S. are mandated that happens, is the research is already coming back 120 days later. They don't remember what it was because it still falls into the trap of teach to test.
Yeah.
They've got a curriculum, and so the teacher is going to make sure that they pass that final exam so that
Yeah.
they can move on. And I think that that's probably the biggest miss in education today is education,
I get it, man. Learning, right?
learning.
I 100% get it. I get it. It's the same. I mean, okay, I've been out of education now for a number of years, probably 15 years, more 17 years. But yeah, I know lots of my friends and family are teachers. It's the same in the UK.
Yeah.
It's,
And I'm not being critical. The schools do teach them to read and to write and to some of those basic functions on there. So I'm not trying to be
not the teacher's fault, right?
right. Yeah. I'm not trying to be the naysayer, but it's, you ask a question, that's the
It's the
direct answer.
curriculum itself, the
Right.
system itself, right? It's not that
Yes.
the teachers don't want to teach. It's that
Well,
they've got.
they want to teach.
I know, I know, I know. All right, business. What's the best and worst advice you got about starting a business?
Um, I think the best advice I could give to anybody that wants to start a business is probably if you don't have this, you better learn it quickly, and that's adapt and overcome.
Hmm.
Because you're going to adapt and you're going to overcome a lot. And you're going to change the direction. You're going to find out what works, what doesn't work. It's hard. I think anybody who starts a business, hopefully they understand it. It's hard work. It's not easy.
Mm.
But if you don't have that ability to adapt and overcome, it will eat you up, and you will not be successful.
All right, man. And what's the most difficult part for you about running a business?
I think I think it's a lot like life. And I'll answer that by saying work-life balance is always tough for people who are really driven.
Hmm.
When you're running a business, and especially this business, is that head-heart balance
Mm.
of keeping the head in the business and the heart in the business, and keeping that balance. I have a tendency to want to go way to the heart,
Mm.
and then I have to get reeled back in and just say, okay, but we're also running a business.
I understand, man. I hear you. I hear you. So, a couple last things. What's your favorite quote?
Again, I'll give you the one that's coming to me most predominantly right now, and that is to dream is to see is to create is to have.
Nice. Final question. What question should I have asked you?
I don't know. It's a great question, and I don't know that I have the answer to that because honestly, I didn't know what to expect, and by design in going into this, so I
Yeah.
didn't really have a gosh. Really hope he asks this or asks that. I
Yeah.
really walked down that road. Um, I would guess that if there would have been anything, it would have been, is there a life for you and life after Electus? That would have
Okay.
been probably maybe the one question,
What's the
but
answer, John?
absolutely.
You know what it'll be? You got a plan?
Um, I want to get more involved in um, just telling the message really about everything that we've talked about is to really have the opportunity to get in front of educators, to get in front of organizations, and to be able to say there is a way to change the direction for our youth. We can make a significant impact, and if we all can start to focus on that, we literally can change the world. And I really think that and I'm not trying to be foofy in saying that, but I think that there's some learning that we're pulling out of this and some things that we're seeing that that can be messaged to those who are in the space, and joining arm in arm, we can make a significant impact.
I like it. I like it. Good place to end. How can people find you and Electus or anything else online? What we
Just probably the easiest thing is to email me.
Yeah.
And it's john.seib, S is in Sam, E is in Echo, I is in India, B is in Bravo, SEIB, john.seib at electuseducation.com. And Electus is ELECTUS. So john.seib at electuseducation.com.
Very
Just
good.
reach out. I'll pick it up from there.
Excellent, John. John, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't know if you got what you wanted, but I absolutely enjoyed it, and I love talking about what we're doing. So this was a pleasure for me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you have an e-learning business, you're a leader of an e-learning business that you're looking to get to the next level, increase sales, that kind of thing, feel free to reach out. I'll put a link to my LinkedIn beneath this video, and you can get me there. Have a great day.